Great. So guys, welcome back. I think after nearly 1 week, we are again resuming back our session. Okay. Before I start the session, I have a small request with you all people. Since we have except 2 students, since we have all the people, I got a proposal. Okay. The proposal here is that by any chance, okay, if any one of us are not available for the session, even if I have one student, can I take the session? And one thing is guaranteed that you'll be having a recording. We'll share the recording to you all people, which is done by default. You can go through that recording and you can come back to me for any questions. Or you want to have an saying that no, Shiva, if at least one student is not there, please cancel the session. Which one you want? Can I
See,
take the session?
now only it is taking me around 1 month to complete JBoss.
Yeah, that's thing I'm saying, because I'm sure, because sometimes what happens is that we would be stuck with our own schedules, either private, personal, or professional.
Yeah,
So is it okay with you all people that if I have at least one student, I can take the session, or is it that no?
yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So I got
But
a confirmation from Chaitanya and Venu, and one thing is definitely guaranteed that recordings will be there.
yeah, and
Definitely recordings will be
you'll
there.
sort out the problems which you are facing
Yeah, by any
after
chance,
this.
if something isn't clear on the recordings, okay, you can always let me know saying that, Shiva, this is something which I couldn't get it in the recording. Can you come back?
Okay, okay, fine.
That's definitely guaranteed.
Okay,
So
fine.
I have a confirmation from Venu, Chaitanya. I think Satish is also okay with this. Perfect. Thank you. Yep. So coming back to our session. So in our last session, we theoretically talked about what are the different ways of doing the installation of JBoss application server. Just to give a recap, I said that we can do the installation in multiple ways, just by doing the unzipping of the software. If I have the JBoss application server software available as a zip file, the moment I unzip the software, I can do the installation, or I can use the GUI mode. This is only applicable for the operating systems where the GUI is by default supported. Okay, in all the systems, in all the machines where the GUI has been given a capability, then in all those machines you can do the installation of your JBoss application server using the GUI mode. The third way is by using the command line, which I'll be talking right now. Okay, using the command line also I can try to do the installation of my JBoss application server software. The fourth one is by using the yum update. If you have the if you have the JBoss related packages on your operating system, okay, just by doing yum install JBoss EAP, you can comfortably do the installation of the JBoss application server. But to execute a yum update, it's mandatory that you have an admin privileges or you have an root privileges. The fifth way of doing the installation is by using the auto.xml file. Whenever I'm trying to do the installation of my JBoss application server, imagine a scenario that on 100 machines, okay, I have to install the JBoss application server, and the folder structure, the file structure, everything will remain same in all these 100 machines. Traditionally, what we used to do is that we used to do the installation individually on all these 100 machines. But with the JBoss application server, when you do the installation on one machine, you will have a file called as an auto.xml file. This file will have the information about what exactly you did as part of the installation. Whatever the commands you executed, whatever the settings you did, either by using the GUI or from the command line, all that information will be captured in this auto.xml file. So what you can do is that on one of the machine, you can do the manual installation, generate this auto.xml file, which comes by default, take this auto.xml file and execute it on other 99 machines. Everything gets automatically installed. Okay, that's a auto.xml file. So we talked about this 5 different ways of installation, and I also said that at any point of the time, if you want to install the JBoss application server, ensure that you have user ID with appropriate privileges. Okay, and second thing you need to ensure is that you need to have a Java set as environmental variable. Okay, whatever the JBoss application server installation I'm trying to do, it's optional and we can avoid this one when you are trying to do the installation. Post installation is done, whatever the things you want to do, it's mandatory and definitely mandatory to have the Java as an environmental variable, because in all the startup scripts and configuration or class path scripts, it uses the Java underscore environmental variable. So what will happen is that the moment it has the environmental variable called as Java underscore home, and if you're not setting the Java as an environmental variable, it will not get the Java. If it's not getting the Java, the execution of the class path scripts, the execution of the startup scripts will not be working perfectly fine. So it's mandatory that you set the Java as an Java underscore home as an environmental variable. On my Windows-based operating system, if you see here, the moment I say Java space hyphen version, I get the Java. Okay, I get my Java. Similarly, if you see on my Linux-based operating system, okay, I have a Java available. The moment I say which Java, it will give me the path of my Java where I had installed it. Excuse me, don't get confused with this particular folder. I accidentally created a folder with this name, but actually the version of the Java I have got is 1.7. Okay, so it's mandatory that we need to have the Java as an environmental variable. And one important thing is that here, if you see here, I'm trying to do the installation with an ID called as a root ID. 99.99% of the time, at least as per my knowledge, never we do any configurations, any installation with a root ID. Clear? So you need to have an appropriate user ID. Okay, and using this particular user ID, you have to do the installation. And this user ID also, on this user ID also, you need to have the Java set as an environmental variable. In case if you don't know how to do it, very simple. Go to your home folder, whatever the user ID you have got, and there is a file called as in bash rc or bash profile. You can either use bash profile or you can use bash rc. I'm more convenient with the bash profile, so I'm using the bash profile. And this, so you set the Java as an environmental variable. Once you did in that way, in case if you are trying to use the root ID and if you say that Shiva for some XYZ reasons, I'm trying to use the root user ID, then what you have to do is that you have to make the changes in the etc profile. Clear? Or profile.d, whichever is convenient for you. Anyone, any questions still here?
No.
I just given a glimpse of what we have discussed in the last session. Yeah. And in the last session, I'm not sure why exactly my system was throwing the exceptions. I did the same steps whatever we have did it in our last session. Now I'm getting it. Okay, just for information. So no questions from Satish. How about Venu or Chaitanya?
No.
Good. So silence, I'll assume no questions from anyone. Okay. So if you're not having any questions, let me continue with my session. And if you see here, I got my JBoss application server software in this particular location. This is the location where I have my software, and I see that my user ID has got a sufficient execute permissions. Okay, sufficient execute permissions to execute it. And since the installer I'm getting is a jar file, clear? Since the installer which I'm getting is a jar file, to run this particular jar file, I need a Java. Java should be there as an mandatory to execute this particular jar file. But because it's a mandatory prerequisite to have the Java underscore home set as an environmental variable, I have already completed that particular task. Now I can start the installation. How you can start the installation of executing this jar file? Very simple. Anytime you want to run any jar file, simply say java space hyphen jar and the name of that particular jar file. Now the moment you execute, the moment you start the installation, by default it will try to pick it up the GUI mode. But since this particular machine on which I am installing, since it doesn't support the GUI capability, it by default went into the command line installation. If you have an operating system, for example, my Windows based operating system, if you see here, I'm just showing you the path. 1 second. I pause the screen sharing wantedly. I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have the software on your operating system, okay, and if that operating system supports the GUI capability, the moment you invoke that particular installer, if you see here, by default, I had the GUI screen coming here. Okay. Since this particular operating system, my Linux-based operating system, since it doesn't support the GUI capability, okay, I didn't had that. Clear, everyone? Okay. So if you see here, what is the options it is saying? It is saying that, can you choose the language? If you want English, choose 0, Chinese 1, French 3, Japanese 4. Like that, it is giving an number correspond to each and every language. Depending upon your convenience, you choose the language you want. Since I don't know any language listed here other than English, I'll try to pick the first option. But I've seen that there is a 0, okay, that is by default selected. So that means to say that this option is by default selected. Again, you can give the numerical 0 and press enter, or you can directly press the enter button. Clear, everyone?
Clear.
About others? Venu and Satish, you clear? Okay. Silence, I assume it's clear to all, but in case if it's not clear, please pause me up. So the next one, it is saying about it's saying that press 1 to continue, or if you want to redisplay the option, press 3, or if you want to quit the installation, press 2. I want to continue doing the installation, so let me press 1. It is saying that this is a path I'm trying to do the installation. Are you okay with this particular path? Or if you say, no, Shiva, I don't want to have it over here. I want to have it under the directory opt. Okay, this is the path. Okay, I want to have my JBoss application server installed, provide that particular path. There's a default path that is picked up by your installer. And if you're trying to give any other path, or if you're trying to use the default path, ensure your ID has a sufficient privileges on that particular directory structure. Okay, so opt EAP620 is the one which I've selected. Press enter. It's saying again 1 to continue, 2 to quit. Since I want to continue doing the installation, I'll press 1. It's saying that, hey, can you create an administrative user ID? Okay. This I'm not sure how many of you people have an experience with other application servers or with the other IT tools. Now, for example, let's say that Gmail itself, if you see here, every one of us has an access to the Gmail or a Yahoo Mail account. Whenever we are trying to access the Gmail or a Yahoo Mail, it asks us to create the user ID and password. Why we need this user ID and password? Unless until you're not creating an appropriate user ID and password, you'll not be allowed to log in inside the Google. Unless until you can't log into the Google, you can't use the facilities of the Google Drive, the Gmail, the uh, photo sharing, okay, whatever the things that are features that are provided, you can't control or you can't use it. So it's mandatory that if you want to use this particular GUI tool called as in Gmail, it's mandatory that you create the user ID and password. Similarly, even your JBoss application server has a GUI tool. Whatever the administrative related task you want to perform by interacting with the JBoss application server, it's mandatory that you create that user ID and password to log into that particular JBoss. And this user ID which you are trying to create to interact and manage the different resources that are there in the JBoss, we call this particular user ID as management user. Other than the management user, we also have an application user. Guess you're getting me? Management user is a user using which you'll try to interact with the JBoss application server for any of the administrative related tasks. Okay, for example, you want to start a server. For example, you want to create a server. For example, you want to configure a JMS. For example, you want to modify the configuration related parameters. For example, you want to add a class path library file. For example, you want to change the logging structure. For example, you want to increase the heap memory. So for whatever the things you are trying to interact with the JBoss application server, the user ID which you would be using is called as a management user. Clear, everyone?
Yeah.
Satish, you aren't audible. Satish, you aren't audible. You have any questions? How about you, Venu? You have any questions? Okay, cool. So, Chetan, you have any questions?
No.
Perfect. So we know what is meant by the management user. Apart from the management user, we also have another type of user called as application user. What is this application user, Shiva? Application user is a user which you would be needing whenever two applications need to interact with each other. Let me repeat myself. Application user, the application user is a user which would be created whenever two applications need to communicate with each other in a secured way. Clear? Application user is a user that is mandatory need to be created whenever two applications wants to communicate in a secured way. What do you mean by that, Shiva? I mean clear. Very simple. For example, let's say that I got a JMS application. Okay, or let's take a layman example. Let's say that I'm trying to call to one of you. Let's say that I'm trying to call to Satish. Okay, I went to US. Okay, and I thought of meeting my student Satish. So I'm trying to call him up. When I'm trying to call him up, he'll not immediately recognize me and say that, hey Shankar, hey Shiva, come and meet us. Okay, we'll meet at so-and-so restaurant and so is the place. He'll not immediately say that. He'll say, may I know whom you are? Okay, may I know to whom I'm speaking with? So the moment he asks that particular question, I try to authenticate myself so that he understands that, oh, Shiva is the person whom I know. So let me try to do the communication now. In a similar way, if you see the JMS applications also, whenever two JMS applications are trying to communicate with each other, we try to have an authentication done. We try to have a trust established. How we try to do it? We try to create an user ID. This user ID we create from the JBoss is called as an application user. Clear? So whenever you have a scenario wherein which you need to work with different application, wherein which it is mandatory to have the user IDs created for this requirement, try to choose the user ID as application user. I'll tell you later on how do we create the application user, but as of now, take the concept. Clear?
Yeah.
Anyone? Any more questions? Okay. Silence. I assume no questions. So let me continue.
No question.
So if you're okay with this default management user, you choose, you can continue, or if you want to give any other user ID. For example, I don't like this user ID called as an admin. I want to give my name. Okay, or you want to give the JBoss. Whatever the things you want, okay, whatever the user ID you want, you create that. And what is this password? You can select any password. For our convenience, let's say the password as admin @1234. Remember the password? I really have a bad habit of forgetting the passwords. Okay, so create the password and please ensure you confirm the password. There is an restriction there for this particular password with the latest version, saying that it should be some alphanumeric with some special characters like that. Okay, but till or for all the versions below 7.0, nothing of that kind of restriction is there. Okay, so I use the password called as an admin @1234. You can give any password, whichever is being confirmed by your technical focal. Clear?
Yeah.
So once you're done creating the user ID and password, it will ask you, okay, give the same options again, asking you to enter 1 for continuing, 2 for quit, and 3 for redisplay. I want to continue doing the installation, so I'm pressing 1. The moment I press 1, okay, it will give me it is asking me, saying that, hey, do you want to have any quick starts to have? Okay, you want to create any quick start examples? I already have a knowledge in the JBoss. I don't want to have anything unnecessary that is not relevant to my requirement. So I'm selecting no. But if you see here, the option no is by default selected. How do I know that? There is an X attached to that. If you say that, no, Shiva, I want to install this quick starts and I want to explore more on how exactly this quick start or the examples that are provided by the JBoss will work. Then you select one and press enter. It will ask you to provide the path of where you want to have your quick starts installed. Clear? There's a default path that is being chosen, okay, and there's a path you have given previously to do the installation. If you're okay, use this particular path, or else you can continue. Okay, I press the enter button because I'm okay with the default path that is coming for the quick starts. Okay, and the reason why I entered the numerical 1 is because I want to install the quick starts. If you don't want to install the quick starts, rather than pressing 1, you can directly press enter here so that this option will directly come for you. Okay.
Okay.
Anyone? Any questions still here?
No.
How about others? Great. So let me press 1 and continue doing the installation. So it's saying that, okay, specify the Maven repository wherever you have got. Maven is something that isn't needed to us, at least as of now. Okay, Maven is again one of the build tool we have got. Okay, as of now it's not mandatory for us to have. Okay, so we'll skip this. The reason why we get this particular option is because I've chosen to install the quick starts. If I haven't chosen the quick starts to install, this option generally doesn't come. So press 1 to continue. And these are the things that are getting by default installed. So if you see some of the options, okay, are coming as required, and some of the options are coming as unselectable. Clear?
Yeah.
The moment I press 1, it is saying that, okay, these are the packages that are getting installed. Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever the packages that are getting installed are having X. I see that all the packages that are getting installed has X. That means to say that these are the options that are selected by default. But for a couple of them, I'm saying the option call as in required, and for one of the option, I'm seeing as an unselectable. What do I mean by that? I mean to say that whatever the options that are coming as required, these are very mandatory things that need to be present in your environment. Clear? These are the
Okay.
things that has to be present in your environment. If these are not present in your environment, okay, if you're not installing these, okay, your JBoss application server installation will not work properly. So it's
Okay.
mandatory that you have to install them. But for the others, okay, like your quick starts, okay, or your XML XDS, okay, these are some things that are optional. Depending upon your requirement, you can install it or you cannot install. You can skip them. I want to continue with whatever the default install packages that are coming. So I can press enter and continue. Okay. Or if you want to make a confirmation of the installs, press 0. Sure, how do you know that I need to press 0? There's a description here. It's saying that if you are sure about the above packages, press 0 to confirm. So that's the reason I press 0 to confirm. The next thing it is saying that press 1 to continue the installation. It's saying that, hey, there are some default ports that are getting used by the JBoss application server. Do you want to use these default ports, or do you want to have any custom ports, okay, for your JBoss application server? The third option that is coming is that, hey, do you have any feasibility, do you have any requirement wherein which you want to update all the port numbers with certain values? If you see the JBoss application server, if you see the default port for your HTTP communication, it's 80. HTTPS 443. WebLogic 7001. WebSphere, anyone works on WebSphere?
No.
Okay, no problem. So for each and every software component we are trying to install, there is a default port assigned. Okay, couple of services are there. They run on those default parts by default.
Yeah.
So unless until you don't want, okay, you can continue using them, or from security point of view, or from your company process and procedures point of view, if you don't want to have the services running on the default ports, and if you want to update that particular default ports, okay, you can select either the custom port, which is option 1, or you can select
Okay.
option 2. Shiva, what is the difference between the option 1 and option 2? In the option 1, you manually enter the new ports which you want against the default ports. But if you're trying to select the option number 1, all the port numbers, whatever they are there, if you say the port offset to be 100, all the port numbers that are there, okay, they're incremented by 100. If you say port offset as -10, all the port numbers, the default port numbers, whatever they are there, that by default, uh, the port numbers will get reduced by count of 10. So this is what is exactly meant by port offset. Clear? Anyone? Any questions? Venu, Satish, Chaitanya, anyone? Any questions? What is meant by port offset? Sure, Satish, I'll repeat. So the moment I select one here, it is asking me to select the socket bindings. Socket bindings are nothing but the port numbers. The JBoss has a services running on some default port numbers. So if you see here, you can continue doing the installation with the default port numbers. At a later point of the time, okay, you can try to increment or change the default port numbers as per your convenience. Or if you know what are the list of available port numbers, okay, for your JBoss, and if you want to update all the default port numbers with that particular new value, you select the port offset, configure custom ports. Or if you say that, Shiva, I don't want to enter each and every port number for all the services. I want to update all the port numbers with one single execution. I want to execute one value so that automatically, depending upon the value I have given, automatically all the port numbers should be incremented or should be decremented by that particular value. Tell me what I should do, because selecting each and every port number is really not that convenient for me. Then in those scenarios, you choose the port offset value. Depending upon the value you are given for the port offset, according to that, the port numbers, the default port numbers are incremented or decremented to a new value. Clear? How about others? Venu and Chaitanya, is it clear? Very, very basics, but mandatory to remember. Okay. I got a confirmation from Venu. Chaitanya, you are clear? Okay. Silence, I'll assume it's clear. If something is really not convenient, please pause me up immediately. So I don't know. I don't want to do any port offset because this is a brand new system that I have got it. And I talked to my network and my technical focal saying that I'll continue doing the installation with these port numbers, default port numbers. Later, as per the demand, I'll try to update the port numbers. So let me select 0. But 0 is by default selected. How do I know that? There is an X in the brackets. That means this option is selected by default. So you can press 0 and then enter, or you can directly press the enter. Press 1 to continue. Okay, it's saying that the moment you're done installing the JBoss application server, do you want me to start any server? Tell me, how do you want to start the server? Do you want to start it in an standalone mode? Do you want to start it in an domain mode? Tell me in which mode you want me to start the server, or you don't want at all start the server. Frankly speaking, as of now, I don't know what is meant by standalone mode, what is meant by domain mode, what are the differences between them. So I can't pick up the option of starting the server either in a domain mode or a standalone mode. So let me go with the first option, wherein which I don't want to start the server. Clear? So you'll be selecting the option 0 for this. But this option 0 is by default selected. How do I know that? There is an X in the brackets. Since there is an X in the brackets, that means to say that this option is by default selected. Clear, everyone? Am I clear to everyone? Okay, great. So let me select the option. Okay, press 1 to continue. It's saying that, okay, it's asking us to choose the logging levels. Okay, whatever the logging levels I've got, it is asking me to choose the logging levels. Okay, so depending upon your requirement, you can choose the different logging levels. If you see the JBoss application server, JBoss application server supports different kinds of a logging: info, warn, debug, critical, error, and exception. These are the logging levels that are supported. At the time of installation, you can say which log level you want to use. Frankly speaking, I want to log all the information having the trace level of info and above. Clear? I want to log the information of my JBoss application server having the trace level of info and above. So now you make a call which one you want. If you say that, Shiva, See, first of all, I'm new to the JBoss. My technical focal or my architect didn't say which kind of a log level I have to use it. Now tell me what I have to do. Very simple. Then you go with the default installation. At a later point of the time, once you have the required data, you can update the info accordingly. Clear? Clear, everyone? Okay. Silence, I'll assume it's clear to all. So let me continue. I'll go with the default option, but this default option is selected by default. So press enter and then 1. It's saying that, hey guys, thanks for the info. I'm trying to do the installation. So these are the components that are getting right now installed. Okay. So it's asking me, post the installation is done, would you like to perform some configuration like starting a server, updating such certain configuration? Do you want to do anything? I don't want to do anything. I want to first of all do a plain simple installation. Once the installation is successfully completed, I want to plan to do something more. So which option I have to select? I have to select the first option. But I see this first option is selected by default. How do I know that? There is an X within the brackets. Now, depending upon your requirement, either you can choose the uh, 0 option, or if you want to perform additional configurations, you can choose the first option. In JBoss application server, unlike other installations, okay, you don't have a flexibility to go back. Okay, once you select the option, unless until the next option is not coming, you cannot select it. Unless until this one is not coming, you can't go back. So let me go with the 0 option. Okay, so these are the things that are getting created by default inside my JBoss application server. Don't worry about what are the different options that are coming. I'll explain you all. But the most important thing is that if you remember 30 to 40 minutes back, okay, we are trying to talk about the different installations. And I said that as part of that particular one, I said that, okay, if you want to do the installation on 100 machines, run the installation on one of the machine, and when you're about to do the complete the installation, an option will come for you to generate the auto.xml file. Generate this auto.xml file, okay, and take this auto.xml file and run it on the other 99 machines. Whatever the installation that is there on the first one, the same kind of the installation will also be done in the other 99 machines. If you say that, no, no, Shiva, I want to customize, then edit the auto.xml file as per your convenience. Clear? Anyone? Any questions still here? How about Venu and Chaitanya? Is it clear to you all? Great. I think Chaitanya is offline. Okay. Chaitanya, you can go through the recording and let me know if you have any questions. So this is our auto.xml file. On the other machines where you are trying to do the installation, if you want to update any of the things, for example, let's say that you want to change the ports. Okay, you can give the value here off. You want to change the path. Yep, this is the installation part. You can change the value here. So depending upon the things that are there in the auto.xml file, assuming that these are the valid values, according to that, the installation will be done. So let me go to this particular path. So this is my JBoss home. Okay. So I go to this and there's a bin folder inside that, and you start the JBoss application server. Don't ask me what is my standalone mode and domain mode right now. I'll tell you guys in few minutes, okay, or probably in tomorrow's session. But the moment you invoke the JBoss startup script, either standalone mode or domain mode, you get the JBoss application server. Clear? You get the JBoss application server. Everyone able to see that? This is my JBoss home. So this is the JBoss home. We have got it. Clear? So in what I seen around 3 years back when I went for the JBoss certification is that what they ask you the trickily is that, okay, this is the default JBoss home. They will not say that change the default home. They'll say that post the installation is done, please start the JBoss application server having the JBoss home as OPT EAP 620. What should you do now? What they are trying to say, they're saying that your JBoss home should not be this. Your JBoss home should be this one. What should you do now? You move all the contents that are there in the current folder structure. Okay, and what you can do now? Now your JBoss home would be this one. Everyone able to see that? Don't worry about this error because of this memory issues, okay, which will get rectified later. So, yep. Anyone, any questions? On how do we change the JBoss home path also? Clear to everyone? Anyone, Satish? Cool. I have a confirmation from Satish. Cool. So this is what is a JBoss home. When I go inside the JBoss home, I see n number of files and n number of folders. It's not mandatory for you to know about all of these files and folders, but couple of them are there which are mandatory for you to know. Okay, what are those files? Okay, and what is meant by the standalone mode and domain mode? I'll explain you in tomorrow's class. But before we break, I'll take 5 minutes of the session trying to explain the important folders. Okay, I'll get in detail in tomorrow's session, but at a very high level, when you go inside the JBoss home, you will see the auto.xml file. You'll see the auto.xml file. You will have a bin folder. Always remember, bin folder is nothing but, okay, it is the universal definition for the bin folder is the bin folder has an executable files. Clear? What is the bin folder? The bin folder has an executable files. Wherever you go in the admin world, and if you see bin folder, always remember that it has got some executable files. Okay? If you see here in reference to the JBoss application server, inside the JBoss home bin folder, you get the executable files that are related to the JBoss at the installation level. For example, you want to create the management or application user. You can use this. You want to start the JBoss in a domain mode. You can use this. You want to start the JBoss application server in standalone mode. You can use this. You want to invoke the Java console. You can use this. You want to run the JBoss command line utility. You can use this. So whatever the executable files that are there at the installation level with reference to the JBoss, it is by default present in JBoss home bin folder. Clear everyone? Okay. So bundles is a folder where you have the JBoss related bundles. Okay. Whatever the installation you have did. Okay. And if you want to know how the installation has happened, someone is saying that no, Shiva, your installation is 100% correct. So in all those scenarios, you can share them this installation log.txt file, which contains about the different things that you have configured as part of your installation. So for any deviations, okay, you can always refer to this particular XML file. Clear? And if installation is 100% successful, then only this one will come. If in case if it is partially unsuccessful or if it is not at all successful, then you'll not get this option. And remember, if you want your installation to be called as 100% successful, this message should be always be there. Clear? Anyone? Any questions? Cool. So if you don't have any questions, okay, let me pause here for today. A quick recap before we break here for today. We revised about the different ways of doing the installation, and we did a lab on how to do the installation using the command line. We also have seen how the installation would look in case if you're trying to do the GUI mode. We talked about what is meant by management user and application user. We glanced at the different file or the folder structures that we get post installing the JBoss application server. So I'm sure Satish and Venu has a software. Please go through that, do the installation of the JBoss application server, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay? Thanks everyone. Bye. Good night and good day.